So music can be pretty cool sometimes. Often with music, pieces are telling a story, they're expressing an emotion, they're painting a picture. And what's so cool about music's ability to do that is that it causes us to imagine these things in a different way than we normally would and draw different connections. The best way to understand how music does that is to look at how composers have done that in the past. And a composer that is known for their beautiful imagery in their music is Debussy. Debussy has this piece called The Sunken Cathedral, which paints this picture of a cathedral being completely submerged in water. So in this piece, The Sunken Cathedral, we start with this really soft, there's barely any motion to it, these chords moving from the bottom of the piano to the top. And I kind of imagine bubbles coming off the cathedral and rolling to the surface of the water. So I imagine like that first chord is the bubble kind of appearing. As the chords continue to move up the piano, we're seeing that bubble float up toward the top. Then we switch to a new idea and we hear these higher notes on the piano that sound a lot like church bells. If church bells are ringing, if you've ever heard church bells ringing, or maybe even a clock chime, this sounds very similar. And so I think Debussy was really smart. He wants us to know that this is a cathedral underwater, not just any random thing underwater. And so he uses our understanding of what sounds cathedrals make and pulls that into the piece. So now we hear these bells chiming, but they seem slow and lethargic, like they're still stuck underwater. And now we start to see some motion. The music really starts to move forward. And I feel like this part really describes this cathedral is now floating up. There were enough bubbles or something to get the cathedral to float to the surface of the water. And so we start hearing this forward moving motion. The tempo is increasing. We hear more chords that are getting higher on the piano. The key is changing to a higher key to let us know like something's happening. Something's moving. So it's really cool that we can see images like that I can hear music and feel like it's an accompaniment to this image that I have in my head that the composer just says like, yeah, that's what this is. Now, a more modern application of this same concept of creating a picture using music is James David's Two-Lane Blacktop. Two-Lane Blacktop is inspired by a piece of modern artwork that depicts a road that you can see here. And I think what James David does is really smart. He sees this road and he's like, okay, what does a road sound like? And I think you hear pretty immediately in the piece, there's traffic on this road. You hear cars honking, you hear them zooming by wherever you're standing with all of those woodwind runs. But what's so wild that you would never know unless you really understand the music or maybe play the instrument, he's using car parts in the music. A brake drum is used for the brakes of a car, and you can hear the percussionists hitting the brake drum over and over.
Use a car part in music to paint a picture. How cool is that?
Now we start to hear like big trucks on this road, and they are just like pulling on that horn, making sure that you know that they're there. But there's also these moments on road trips where you come to the peak of a hill and suddenly there's this like beautiful view that you had no idea was coming. And he describes that beautifully as well. In the middle of all of this panic that he's portraying in this piece, he also wants us to take in the scenery. So how are they doing this? How are they able to create such vivid pictures using sound? Well, they're using stuff that you guys already know about. Debussy used things like register, how low or high on the instrument we can hear. He used things like dynamics, how soft or full are we playing. He used familiar melodies or familiar sounds like bell tolls to help us create an image. James David used familiar sounds too, like cars honking. He used speed and rhythm to create franticness, and he used texture and instrument choice to change the mood from panic to soft and relaxed. So as you guys continue to work on your compositions, be thinking about what's a picture that I can paint and what tools can I use? What tools do I have? Rhythms, pitches, dynamics that are going to help paint this picture. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Good luck.